Alrighty, so with Razor seemingly gone, and New Zealand rugby and New Zealand public starts looking towards the future at who's going to be the next coach, I think it's important to just have a look back at the previous two regimes. For me, the head coach role is I mean it'll be important, but I think the selection of the assistants. I think needs to be there needs to be a lot more uh, a bigger focus on them, to be honest, because if we've seen from the Foster regime, Plumtree and Moore, his two first assistants that he got to pick, were canned after 2 years, um, and then with Razor, obviously, we saw Leo McDonald out early doors. Holland left on his own accord. Well, they both left on their own accord, right? They both weren't happy. And then, this Razor seemingly, he went with a guy, Tamati Elson, who didn't have a lot of experience, and another Crusader, and Scott Hansen was obviously, by all accounts, pulling the strings, and he didn't really. I mean, no one really saw any improvement in the overall tactics of the team. So clearly, we have an assistant problem. Now, maybe that's down to New Zealand Rugby and how they select the coaches, and the coaches basically apply with their coaching team and whatever. But one thing that I do find just crazy, and it was something I heard during or over the weekend. I was listening to Rugby Direct with Elliot Smith, and he had, I think it was Gregor Paul, was it, a New Zealand Herald writer, and he was basically saying that the Scott Robertson applied for the AB's head coach role 3 times with the exact same assistants, right? So the first 2 times he applied for the All Black coaching role, he was denied. He was turned down because his assistant coaching team did not have enough experience, right? And then he applied again. While Fozzie had the job, while they were doing the search for the next All Black coach, he applied again with the exact same coaches, and miraculously was approved and given the job. Now, I don't know how it goes from not having enough experience to having the appropriate experience. For me, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that even went down. Like, first of all, for someone to apply 3 times with the same coaching team after being told twice already that they didn't have enough experience, just for me is a little bit on the nerve. Like, it's just such an arrogant move. It kind of speaks to me that Robertson, he thought he knew better, and he, like it doesn't surprise me that his way of coaching was not to sort of let the players have a voice, because he didn't really need. I feel like he didn't need to learn anything. That's what he felt. He didn't have anything to learn from other people, which is just not true in any role or any part of our life. There's always stuff to learn off anyone. So just really really bizarre, and it just goes to show that the assistants are so much more important, because it's not just the head coach that needs a connection with the team, it's also your assistants, especially if they're the ones doing a lot of the coaching. um, so yeah, that now we look forward to who's going to be that coach, and everyone's talking about Jamie Joseph, which makes sense. He was the coach of the New Zealand 15s, which many people thought at the time that was a bit of a statement from the New Zealand Rugby board, basically saying that this he's earmarked as the next coach if things don't go to plan. Um, so yeah, it makes sense that he's in he's the front runner. So, what does a coaching team look like with Jamie Joseph? Obviously, Tony Brown is his Robin, right? Everyone expects Tony Brown to be in the picture, but I, if you follow and trust Razzie Erasmus Twitter account, he's throwing cold water on that fire. So he's basically saying that Tony Brown's not going to come back. And then it's been reported by a few journalists in New Zealand that it's confirmed that he is going to honour his contract and stick around to the end of the World Cup, which you can't blame him, and it's pretty fair, right? Good on him for having some integrity and sticking around to finish what he started. You can only really admire that. So where does it leave the All Blacks? Well, I honestly think it works out in New Zealand's favour a little bit, because there's no one better in New Zealand rugby than the professor. And we've seen it time and time again with him. Whenever he's touched New Zealand rugby, good things happen. And a 2-year contract, like, he's been quite hard to tie down to a New Zealand rugby commitment, hasn't he, over the years? I think he's prioritising family and stuff like that. So a 2-year deal, taking us up to the World Cup before Tony Brown would be available, would be just ideal. And you look at what he did with the Black Ferns in 2020. Well, the lead up to the 2021 World Cup, where he turned that team around in 2 years, and had them beating the best team in the world in the final. And that was nothing short of a miracle. So, I mean, he's just even with Tony Brown available, like, I just don't think you can do better than Wayne Smith. If he's prepared to come into that role, he would be, I guess, the attack coach. How good would that be? A super feel good appointment as well. So that would be awesome. I would love to see that. And then it would be cool to get someone like Dave Rennie as well into the mix. Whether he would be happy to be an assistant, whether he'd be happy to work with Jamie Joseph. Hopefully he would be, but you never know. I think they have worked together in the past, maybe in Wellington. They were assistants together. I'm not too sure. I mean, those three. And then I had a little peek at the Highlanders coaching staff earlier and noticed David Kidwell was on the coaching team, and that's quite interesting, because if you don't remember, he was obviously the coach of the New Zealand Kiwis before going on to being the defensive coach for the Los Pumas under Michael Checker. I think that was 2022, and did a really good job there. He followed Checker to the Leicester Tigers as well, so he did got a bit of experience up in the Northern Hemisphere as well, in the English Premiership. So he's been around the block a bit. He is we've seen some of the best teams in the world now have rugby league, ex-rugby league players as running like the defensive line. We've seen it in France, we've seen it for Ireland. So, and these are the defences that New Zealand has found really tough to break down in the past. So tapping into some rugby league, like IQ, which we have plenty around us here in New Zealand and over in Australia, is just that they need to start looking in that sort of area, and then even looking towards attack, because what's better than if you need to break down a rugby league defensive line, then you need some a rugby league attack coach. So who knows? But they need to start looking a little bit differently and not just going with the the best rugby union coaches available, in my opinion. So adding David Kidwell to the coaching team would be a smart idea. He'd also add a little bit of mongrel, right? Because he is a bit of a mongrel. And you just, maybe that's been, maybe that's been Jamie Joseph's whole plan. He's been building his backroom, his potential, assistant coaching team there at the Highlanders. Who else you got? You got a couple other guys there, including Ben Smith. It wouldn't be a bad shout for a bit of a high ball coach. Neither would Corey Jane, to be honest. So there's a couple of good options, and I just think, Jamie Joseph, Dave Rennie, you can't go wrong with those guys, even Joe Schmidt. Um, but yeah, those are my ideas around the coaching team going forward. There's been some rumours around Tyler Blinthal, who's over with Leinster. He's the attack coach there. And that's an interesting one because he's quite young, but he's there's been some raving reviews about him. Apparently, I'm just saying what I've been listening to. I was listening to Sport Nation, and they were basically saying that players rave about how the way he looks at the game and the way he's able to look at defensive lines and find ways to get through them. So I mean, and they've also said that the rumor has been that he has been contacted. So someone's trying to assemble their assistant coach team. So maybe if that's true, someone's reached out to him. Um, but yeah, I was trying to rack my brain earlier and look towards New Zealand coaches overseas, but um, yeah, didn't really come back with too much. Clayton McMillan, I think he's only just gone over, so it's probably a bit too early for him. And there's Nick Evans, but I haven't watched too much of Harlequins, but I don't. You haven't heard like raving things out of there, so maybe not. But yeah, I'm keen to hear what everyone thinks. Like, does anyone have any other good ideas, any different combinations, anyone we haven't been thinking about, or just way off in left field picks? Let me hear them. Yeah, I'm keen to hear everyone's and yeah, get a good pool of potentials going. Anyway, cheers, guys. Take it easy.